All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're heading out to the American Southwest, Tombstone, Arizona, to be exact. We're looking at a piece of history that beautifully and honestly kind of terrifyingly blurs the line between harsh historical reality and enduring legend. We're talking about a time and place where life was incredibly cheap and death was just an everyday, highly visible part of the landscape. To really wrap your head around the story, you have to understand the environment. Out there, the wind through the desert doesn't just blow, it scrapes, right? We aren't talking about a peaceful rolling meadow here. Tombstone back in the late 1880s was this rugged, totally unforgiving, deeply hostile landscape that just ground away at everything, especially the people. Section 1. Welcome to Boot Hill and its fast, violent endings. So, out on Boot Hill, the grave markers were mostly just weathered wood, literal stakes driven into the hard, sun-baked earth, for one very specific reason: to keep the ghosts down. Because these graves, they didn't belong to regular citizens passing away peacefully in their sleep. Nope. Most of these belonged to men who died with their boots on, fast and violent. And all of this was happening long before Arizona was even officially a state.
Moving on to Section 2, the undertaker's mistake in the late 1880s.
Enter Old Lester. Lester was the local town undertaker, a guy who quite literally measured his entire life in pine planks. Well, one night, right after burying a nameless drifter who'd been shot over some senseless card game, Lester realizes he's made this really mundane mistake. He'd left his absolute favorite iron spade all the way up by the fresh mound of dirt. To get it back, he had to walk back up the hill under a completely moonless sky. I mean, he was walking practically blind into a graveyard full of murdered men. And it wasn't until he was nearing the crest of the hill that this quiet little errand turned into an absolute nightmare.
Section 3, the yellow glow and an unnatural light.
Up to this point, the desert had been dead silent. Well, mostly silent, save for the dry rattle of a rattlesnake somewhere off in the brush. But as Lester neared the crest, something entirely unnatural shattered that silence. He saw a dim, yellowish glow. And no, it wasn't a lantern from some grave robber passing through. It was this faint aura rising directly out of the loose dirt of the brand new grave. Lester just froze in his tracks. The light shifted, taking on the vague, trembling shape of a man. But here is the most unsettling part. This figure wasn't trying to escape the earth like you'd expect a ghost to do. It was actually reaching downward, desperately trying to pull something out of the dirt. Up above him, there was just the vast, empty silence of the desert. But from beneath Lester's feet came this deeply claustrophobic sound, a low metallic scraping echoing up from under the dirt. It sounded exactly like fingernails clawing against the inside of a cheap pine box. Lester didn't grab his spade. He ran. I mean, think about it. A man who spent every single day of his life surrounded by death, completely broke. He abandoned his tool and fled blindly into the dark. Honestly, can you blame him? Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, the Amber Light and Boot Hill's enduring legend. See, the story doesn't end with Lester running away. The next morning, when daylight finally broke and he went back, the grave itself was completely undisturbed. But the wooden marker, that heavy stake driven into the earth to keep the ghost down, it had split clean down the middle. And the wildest part is, to this very day, people taking the night roads past Boot Hill swear they still see it. Not a ghost walking around, but a faint, flickering amber light dancing just above those stones. So knowing the history of the men who died with their boots on, and knowing exactly what old Lester saw reaching back into the dirt, would you dare drive past those stones tonight? Something to think about. Keep wondering, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.